Right. Any apologies?
Thank you. Yes, we've had apologies from Councillor Clark, Councillor Rain, Councillor Harrison, Councillor Godwin and Vic Allison.
Yep. Okay, I spoke to Vic earlier today. He did say he wasn't coming. Okay, any declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests and other disclosable interests? Nope. Okay. Confirmation of minutes from the previous meeting. Has anybody got anything from that? Nope. Okay. Chair's announcements. At our pre-meet and during other meetings, we've also decided that we want to go through the food waste service preparations and make sure that basically everything is hunky-dory and it won't be affected by LGR, or if it is affected by LGR, how it will be affected. So we're going to add that to the agenda later this year. Would that be acceptable for people? Yep. And the other thing was that we'll try to keep everybody informed as well about the scheme that's taking place for Church Street in terms of the bits that have been agreed, because now the adverts are going in about the taxi rank spaces. Yes, so hopefully now everybody's agreed that that's acceptable. So we will be getting some more parking spaces in the centre of Malvern for the first time for many years, which is great. But we'll keep you informed about that. A couple of other things. There's a tourism thing that's happening as well, which I've asked basically Vic to have a look at, because I got an email from one of the traders organisations, not even the official one, telling me about an event that we were putting on, which I thought was a bit weird, really. I think councillors need to be told when there's a tourism event on. So I've spoken to Vic about that. I'll come back to you with details about that, or about that kind of thing, because there's been a couple of things recently where we haven't been told about things that are happening within some of our remit areas. Okay, so I think the communication could be a bit better on that. And is there anything else that anybody else wanted to bring up before we get onto the agenda? Okay, great. There's no public participation. So we're going straight into the quarterly performance report, third quarter, and Andy's here. I presume you're going to speak on that, Andy? Yeah, great.
Thank you, Chair. Very similar to last quarter, pretty much good news throughout, glad to say. Much easier to sit here with good news. The change, or obviously the additional piece of information that wasn't in last time's report, is the annual resident survey results, which are summarised in section 7.8 and obviously in greater detail. And again, very good news, both compared to the previous year, but also compared to the LGA average, where we do very well compared to average councils across the country. But other than that, as it's very similar to the previous quarters, not proposing to say anything else. Happy to take questions.
Has anybody got any questions? Nope, I think that's okay. Right, that's fast. Revenue and capital budgets. Andy again.
Okay. Yep. I was quicker than I was expecting, so I have to scroll through my report. But again, this shouldn't be too much of a surprise, because it's very similar to what was in the MTFP that you only scrutinised, what, 3 weeks ago? A couple of minor changes, and probably best picked up in Appendix A, which when I've scrolled down, which is on page 31 of the packs, and that shows that they are minor changes. Largely that the amount we're transferring to reserves has gone up, and that's the amount that we're putting into the priorities budget. So the priorities budget will be £2 million now, not 1.6 million it was last year. And the budget increases have reduced, and that is around some of the grants that the government are transferring into our other grants pot. It's always difficult getting a handle on those so soon after the government's financial announcement, because quite often it isn't transparent what they're doing. So it does take a little bit of time to work that out. And once we've worked it out, we don't actually need to transfer as much in, so the budget increases come down. And the only other change is on council tax, is that obviously when we do the MTFP, we haven't done the council tax base. When we do the budget, we have done the council tax base, and the council tax base has grown more than we anticipated in the MTFP, so the amount in there for council tax is higher. Every other figure in the report is the same as it was in the MTFP. So it's a balanced budget with £2 million into priorities. It will be for executive committee to decide where those physically get spent. All the budget does is create the pot. No proposed increase in council tax, and similar to the MTFP, putting the money into the next financial year to do the food waste as discussed earlier. But other than that, it isn't that much different to the MTFP, and happy to take questions.
Hi, Christine.
It's not a question. It's a congratulations to your team and John, because we're not a council that's putting up its council tax, and we're still working well, and that's brilliant. So just say well done.
Yes, that's great. Anybody else? I was just going to ask one thing. Potential liability. The landslip not a million miles away from here. Apparently, I've heard that it might be our land which is leased to the town council. Are we liable, or how are we? Have we put any budget aside for that in any contingency at all?
The land is on a 99-year lease, and as I understand from our lawyers, we're not liable for that.
Right. Then begs the question, if they eventually are going to be responsible for it anyway, and this is a legacy issue, should we be considering doing something to try and help that?
I'm not sure legally we're allowed to give money to another publicly funded organisation to help with their liability.
Right. Well, you know more about it than I do. I was just wondering. John?
Yeah, I think the Malvern Town Council have insurance against such things. So really, it's up to them, I think, to deal with that particular issue. They're on this nearly a century lease, aren't they? They're on a century lease. They've taken out insurance, and I think it's for them to sort of work out how to deal with that particular issue.
I just thought if there was, if there were going to be repairs there and something was going to be created, I mean, it's an opportunity to do something as well, perhaps. I don't know if anybody had any ideas about that, because it is an eyesore at the moment, and, you know, can't be left forever.
Yes, but please remember that if you go along at the same height, the land slipped behind the orangery as well, and it slipped a bit further along, so you could be putting your foot in a ant's nest, really. So I think we're well out of it.
So, in other words, the entire town might end up at the bottom of Barnard's Green.
So
I hope not.
No, I don't think so.
Good. Okay, well, we'll leave that subject. Oh, sorry. Yes. Hi,
Yes.
Barbara.
That's right, thank you. Yeah, this isn't anything to do with your landslip, and it's nothing to do with our landslip down in Rochford either. You've probably all seen the pictures. Did I understand Andy say there's been an increase in council tax collection?
No, sorry, Barbara,
Yeah.
increase in the tax base. So that's obviously an arithmetic calculation.
Oh,
The
right.
collection doesn't really affect the finances of the local authority unless we write off large amounts of council tax, but that's picked up separately when we do the final accounts at the end of the year. It's purely an increase in the tax base.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So, you know, because it all came through a bit quick, so I had a job to keep up. But has it made any difference to our amount of tax that we've collected with all these new houses which is being built, which is now being, some of them is obviously being lived in?
Obviously, any new house potentially adds to the tax base. Doesn't definitely add, it potentially adds to the tax base of the council, and that's the reason why the tax base has risen by the forget the exact figure in the report, but we assume in the MTFP that the tax base will go up by 1.5%. In fact, it went up by 2.6%. The biggest driver of that will be new housing.
So
Okay.
welcome from wherever you are, and thanks for your council tax. Okay, anybody got any other questions? Thank you very much for coming, Andy. Right. Oh God, this is so quick. This is ridiculous. Council forward plan for noting, I presume, as usual. Right, we'll have to spend an hour now talking about our work programme. Okay.
Yeah, Chairman, though,
Yes.
actually, before we go from that into that, we did have the Deputy PCC come out, and we had the pleasure or privilege, I don't know what we want to call it, to actually ask questions, which I did regarding to my own ward in Horses, if you remember. I didn't really get much of a response until I really started to sort of dig my heels in. This is after the meeting. And those particular horses that I was talking about, in actual fact, got out about 7 times since that last meeting. And but anyway, the upshot of it was, and I think also it was possibly because we did have the PCC out here, which was interrogating him a little bit. I had the privilege of having PC D. Stanley and one of the community officers come out to see me, and we sat around the table and had a good old chat. So if this sort of a forum, you know, brings things forward, and then it's got to be good. So I don't know whether anybody else had got any response, but John asked quite a few questions, but he's not here tonight, is he? Yeah.
Australia,
Oh, of course he is.
Yeah.
Of course he is, yes.
somewhere warmer and drier.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah, they're having bushfires at the moment, so it is warmer out there, yeah.
So
Yeah.
because there's been horses
Yeah.
that have gone walkabout from where
Yeah.
the site has been, and I think I was just reinforcing there is a general feeling about this. Obviously, yours was more serious, but you know, Castle Morton Common, you get a lot of wildlife, you know, all sorts of things coming across there.
So thank you, Chairman, for giving us the opportunity to carry that out.
Absolutely. I'm glad you got a response, because I haven't, about the security issue, which you and I both, you know, Cynthia and I are both quite aware about, something which really should be looked at in some detail, I think, because of the claims that were made by to an insurance company, which we know through the press, of all things. So I'll be chasing that up. Was there anything else that we haven't had a response back from that meeting? I mean, they aren't clearing up after car damage. They're still leaving bits of the cars there, the tapes and everything. There's one on the way between Pershore and here, and the streams of tape. I mean, you could tape off a full house with it. It's just been left there and abandoned. I'll go and pick it all up, but they don't seem to kind of finish things off very well sometimes. That's the only thing I would say. But
No, Chairman, I quite agree. And I think that if we bring these issues to ONS and we have people in, you know, like the deputy chair of the PCC, and then I think that we should be following these matters up, you know, and there's nothing on the agenda this evening to, you know, regarding any follow-up. And I think these things should be followed up.
I will make sure that we have it on the next session, so that when there are more people here as well, that we can get a bit more feedback. One thing that we are following up on is the Environment Agency's failure to do the model for the flooding. That is the most serious thing that I've ever heard of, because if developers go ahead in Tewkesbury and Upton and all the way up the main river, with development based on out-of-date flood maps, I mean, people are going to be living with that for the rest of their lives. That's just so serious. And nobody has given any assurance so far that the modelling has even progressed at all. So, yeah, anyway, Andrew.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I mean, linking into that, the government put out, I think in October last year, the Flood Resilience in England report. And one of the structural things that they talk about is the necessity to look at the catchment areas in a strategic way. And they say it's almost common sense that that should be so. So here we have a government study saying what we've already said as a task and finished group. So I think we've got quite a lot to talk to the Environment Agency about.
Are we inviting them in? Yes.
Yes, we are. And I think we should make that a priority. We'll let, well, obviously the rain and everything else that's happening now and the floods, you can see the flood patterns are changing. And everywhere that you know that you've been around for the last 10 or 20 years, things are different. And whenever they've interfered with things, the cumulative effect of that is just extraordinary. If you get on the M5 and go via Breed and Tewkesbury, even the patterns on the fields there don't seem to be the same as they were even 10 or 15 years ago. And everybody that knows the areas quite well sees all of that. There are a lot of developments being planned because of the SWDPR, which they really have got to be able to do those with confidence. Otherwise, we're going to have real problems. Well, put it this way, the owners of those houses will have real problems. So I think it's really serious. And Andrew doing that was, making that one of our main tasks this year, I think has been very good.
Can I just carry on the conversation with that?
Yeah.
There's it's part of the Forest of Dean plan, and they don't want to build in the forest, so they're going to have this new development of 3,500 houses just near the M50. Well, it does impact us, but one of the things that I've seen, because we're talking about flooding and things, never mind it's in the middle of nowhere, is that the people have got their drones out, the residents, and just everything is flooded. So it's proof, and yet, the Forest of Dean approved this plan last week, I think it was. But it does impact us because I think we should have a view on it.
Absolutely, because it's an area, well, technically it's a national landscape level forest area linked to our own, and we can see it from the hills. So if it gets built, it will affect the views from the hills. It's called Lynchgate or something, isn't it? What's it called? Lynchbrook, yeah. The brook, Lynch River, probably now. But yes, it is a very serious, huge development considering where it is. And if you go down and actually drive through the area, the posters and everything, I mean, you're complaining about it, are huge, aren't they? People are really up in arms about it. Andrew.
Thank you, Chair. Just to add on to that, I mean, I'm getting involved in a 100 house development in Burford, which is in the Shropshire side, but it impacts on Tenbury Wells. And the build is going to be on a designated floodplain that is now, because of rising water levels, water tables, is now a water meadow currently. And my argument, because I'm going to be asked to talk or speak to this at committee, will be that we've got the Environment Agency Flood Risk Management Scheme on the stocks, and the government say that is going to go ahead. That will impact because it will push the water north of the river. Also, the Environment Agency calculation for the Tenbury Flood Relief Management Scheme goes for a 1 in 100 year event build plus 60% for climate change. And my argument will be that estate should be viable under those government criteria. And it isn't.
Especially the 60%.
Because a great thing in planning when local communities are up against a development and Highway say, yeah, it's okay, and Southern Trent say, yeah, it's all right, is when push comes to shove, you have to rely on expert opinion. And I will be relying on the government and the Environment Agency's expert opinion in that case. So I'll be interested to see how that goes.
I actually think that if we don't get a decent response over a period of time, this committee should actually issue a press release through the council about the fact that they didn't come back and give that information and warn people. And that will make them think, because the National House Builders Federation will have something to say then.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Again, sorry. I think in addition to that, we'd be justified in releasing the information that we asked for the Environment Agency's strategic calculations before they actually adopted a settlement protection plan. And they've been held by our council and held to be confidential and not released to our committee. Vic Allison said he had them, and he said he couldn't release them because they were confidential.
There's nothing that's confidential to that degree that we shouldn't be able to see that he's got access to. That doesn't make sense, does it?
I'm not saying it makes sense. I'm
No,
just
no,
saying
no.
it's
Well,
not true.
John's here. I think
You know, I don't. This committee can actually examine that. So as far as I'm aware, there's no reason for excluding the proper overviewed scrutiny of any of these items, particularly that one. So I would think you can have access to that and examine it and scrutinise it. Okay, I'll
tell you what. Let's give Andrew the power to write on behalf of the committee to ask for that information. Then, okay. Again, officially, copy us all in. All right. Yeah, to Vic, and see what response we get, and see why he's saying he can't release them. And if there's a technical reason, then we'll go round it.
I would have thought it could be released under conditions of confidentiality, but shouldn't exclude you from actually accessing it.
No, it doesn't make sense, because if a chief executive of a council is given the power to see something, then the councillors are responsible for that chief executive. So it doesn't make any kind of sense, really, legally. No. So, right, okay. Is there anything else that we would like to get our teeth into? Anything at the moment? Go on then. Oh, that's good. Right. Okay. No, the sooner that's done, the better, to be honest. It's just ridiculous. It's all getting burnt at the moment, or whatever. I would actually like, eventually, I don't know whether you guys think, I'd like to have the EnviroSort maybe, or whatever, to come in and tell us exactly where some of the stuff is going. Maybe not so that we announce it publicly, but at least we get some reassurance, because I'm very worried that some of the stuff that we think is being recycled isn't.
Yes, I mean, I've been around the EnviroSort place, and they residual heat going somewhere.
You would hope so, wouldn't you?
I mean, I know it should be the county council because they're the disposers, but you wonder who's getting the benefit.
Well, it's like with some of the recycling centres, and the contracts have been forever, and now they're making huge profits when they weren't expected to, but then still not dealing with some of the other stuff that is being taken there. And then there's all the illegal waste side of things as well. We need to have somebody in probably about that as well. You should see some of the piles of illegal waste that I've got living out a bit in the sticks now. I'll take some pictures and then, we can discuss that as well, because apparently there is a new initiative to actually prosecute these people finally, because it's been organised crime that's been doing it for a long time. But we have our own issues with that here, but I won't discuss that openly now. I think we would need to kind of have an agenda item. Okay. Is there anything else? In that case, we will stop the meeting now then at 6:25. Well, at least we're not going bust. And now if it was the county equivalent, it would last